Greetings, friends, musicians, salamanders. Welcome to another episode of The Unstarving Musician. This is episode 352. Wowza. I'm Rabonzo. This is my podcast. How are you? Where are you? What are you wearing? You know, the things I typically want to know. I'm going to get right into it because this is a long conversation today. A wonderful conversation with Terry Carleton, who is a return visitor, a repeat offender, if you will. Terry first joined me back in episode 292 in January of 2024, and that conversation covered a lot of ground. His Bones and Knives recording studio in San Jose, a career spanning decades of live performances and session work, and a remarkable project he'd been commissioned to do for the Mendelssohn family, remixing over 150 Vince Guaraldi recordings from the Charlie Brown TV specials. That project is now wrapping up. The final installment is due at the end of this year, but that's not primarily why Terry's back. He's back because he just finished something he's been building for about 7 years. His own new album, Ric Shah and the Sandcrabs from Jupiter. And the story behind it starts with a joke his late high school bandmate made decades ago and ends with Terry using AI audio separation software to reconstruct guitar tracks that Camel's Andy Latimer had recorded and then lost, as in lost the recording tracks. We also get into his all-analog DAW-less recording workflow, no computers in the studio, no automation, mixing by hand, and what that actually looks like day to day, what it costs him, and why he's kept it. Terry is a drummer, guitarist, vocalist, producer, and has written the Whack Job column on oddball vintage guitars for Guitar Player magazine for about 15 years. He sees 30 drum students a week. He records on average around 120 songs a year for clients as of December 2023 when we last spoke. And he has more work than he can take on, entirely through word of mouth. You can find out more about Terry and his new album, Ric Shah and the Sandcrabs from Jupiter, at bonesandknives.com. And if you like what you hear in this or past episodes and want to learn the implementation strategies behind the success stories, Liner Notes Insider goes deeper than our podcast episodes can. Recent editions have covered things like royalty recovery toolkits, pre-streaming revenue strategy, no streaming revenue strategy, and building owned audience infrastructure, the implementation beneath the episodes. Check out the free edition of Liner Notes at unstarvingmusician.com/liner notes or in the show notes for this episode. And now, here is me speaking with Terry Carleton.
To tell you the truth, I'm nothing short of amazed that I still have this column. It's just this one column has been going on for some almost 20 years.
Are your articles searchable and readable online without a subscription currently?
Yes, they are.
I'll have to look for them then.
In fact, what I don't know, and this is the sort of thing you think I would know, but what I don't know, and this is gonna sound so lame, but what I don't know is what do you get if you have a subscription? Because I can log on. I don't log on. I just go to guitarplayer.com and they don't say, welcome, Terry, or what's your login number or your password or whatever. I just guitarplayer.com and all your articles come up when I go to the search engine and I find my stuff. And so I think it's that easy. I don't think you need a subscription.
Yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Especially publications like Guitar Player. Is it Guitar Player Magazine? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Guitar Player Magazine, and the website's Guitar Player
Magazine online.
Well, guitarplayermagazine.com or guitarplayer.com. I can check that out right now.
Well, they might be relying heavily on just the advertising.
Just the ads, which are infuriatingly, constantly in your face. You can barely read a paragraph without getting a pop-up.
It's crazy. There's so many models for written content. Like, for example, I've been doing a paid newsletter through one of these email service providers, but I'm about to move it to Substack in May. And that's like a lot of, I mean, I'm not, I don't fall in the category of bona fide journalist that, studied journalism and, has the experience of working with a team of professionals in that field. But that's where a ton of them are going now. And they're just doing their own sort of paid model. I mean, obviously some of the old school publications are still out there, and there's all kinds of, I noticed, hybrid things happening for them too. So it's an interesting world. I don't know if I told you this, speaking about guitar player, one of my, actually, I think my first interview, I don't know if he was episode 1 or 2, but anyway, my first interview was Mike Dawson, who was then the longtime editing manager at Modern Drummer magazine.
Oh.
But they kind of shut down. I don't even know.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which, what a drag.
Yeah. Well, now, and they had a really, for, like a drum nerd podcast, and he has an even nerdier one now. He's works for this total drum nerd company. They sell parts for any and all things drums. So they're based out of Pittsburgh. So he relocated there, but he has.
You know what they're called?
I'll find out for you, because I was just thinking, oh, you should know about those guys. Yeah, I'll find out. Let me actually make myself a note. Actually, I have it. Yeah. Okay, I'll let you know what the name of it is if it doesn't occur to me while we're talking. I'll probably just interrupt you mid-thought during something important to tell you the name of it. Hey, do I remember right that you have a turntable? You own a turntable, right?
Yes, I do.
What have you been listening to lately?
In fact, several turntables.
I'm not surprised.
I have 3 jukeboxes in my living room. Damn. 2 of which play 78s, one that plays 45s.
78s.
And then I have the old Wurlitzers. Yeah. And I would love for you to come to my house just to hear the Wurlitzer jukebox. 1946, plays 78s. It's mono. It's got one 15-inch speaker in it. You think, well, how can this sound good?
You got any old Rolling Stones on there?
Well, interesting that you should ask, because Rolling Stones never made 78s.
No, really?
No, they never did. But the Beatles did. But get this, only in India.
Wow.
On the Parlophone label.
That's some trivia.
Their first, I know, man, I'm so deep in the weeds on this shit. Their first 5 singles were released in India on 78. And only in India, and I think the thinking was, it took India a while to catch up to the new formats, i.e., 45 RPM, and let alone 33. And so, if people were playing records in India in the early 60s, they were playing 78s, and and now, I've never seen one. I've seen pictures, but if you have even one of those 578s. They're like worth thousands of dollars, because
my brother, one of my brothers might have a couple. I remember when we were kids. My mom had we had the stereo that was like a piece of furniture.
Oh yeah, big oak cabinet. Yeah.
And so anyway, among those records, there was a 78 or 2. I don't remember what they were. They may have been my brother's recordings, because he was like a 17-year-old, musician who was traveling to Hollywood and stuff. But we also had, maybe I'm thinking of 78s, but I remember we also had 1 or 2 of these albums that clearly had metal in between the vinyl. I don't know what those were.
Yeah.
Like a sheet of metal in the vinyl. It was kind of a trip. It's a trip.
Yeah.
We had 8-track on that thing too, baby.
I have a couple of those. But yeah, I have friends who, I'm going back home to visit my folks, and like, to India. Yeah. Well, did your parents collect records when they were kids? Yeah, they did. Do they still live in the family home? Yes, they do. Is there an attic? Yes, there is. Could you go to it?
Those are good, legitimate questions there at the end too. Do they still live in family home?
Yeah, exactly. And so far, no one's come back to America with any Beatles 78s for me. But that is the uber collectible record. If you're a Beatles nut, which I am.
I'm going to have to remember that.
So what I've been listening to is St. Vincent on vinyl. Her, what's it called? Mass Seduction. That's the name of it. Mass Seduction. So it's a great record. It's not her latest. It goes two back. She's had one come out since. But what a killer record. Then I got the latest Jane Siberry album, in which not Jane Siberry, Katie Lang,
Oh, wow.
who's a friend of their friends. But Katie Lang did a remix of a bunch of her songs from her previous albums, and did it all like with modern producers, and it's cool. Some of it's cool. Some songs just shouldn't have shouldn't have that, but it's really really good.
Wow.
What other records have I been listening to? I mean, other than old ones, but like new vinyl. Oh, I just got the latest Todd Rundgren album, and then of course I have got all the Vince Guaraldi albums on vinyl. The
Of course.
The new Todd Rundgren album is called Space Force, and it's him doing duets with all of these trippy people, like Sparks, the '70s glam band, and then Steve Vai, River Cuomo, all of these trippy people that every song is a duet with him and somebody else. What's his face? Trent Reznor, I think, is on there. Yeah, so it's great.
What a trip. I'm working on so I've been fronting a band. I don't know if I was doing it when we spoke last time. Singing.
No, I think of you primarily as a drummer.
Well, now I'm singing, and I have this amazing drummer who joined us recently. But I kept getting encouraged to do a David Bowie song, and I love David Bowie. I just couldn't find the right song, and I'm like, oh, I know one. I know I've heard a cool mix of that Trent Reznor was involved in of I'm Afraid of Americans. And then I found a Nine Inch Nails live version of it, and it's very much arranged. Well, I guess that it does deviate a bit from the arrangement, but it still sounds like the original. But with that Nine Inch Nails kind of thing. So I'm working on that for the next show.
Awesome.
Should be
How
fun.
cool. So what's it like? Because I've done it. I'm primarily a drummer, but I'm also a singer-songwriter, so I have found myself out in front of the drum set a number of times. What's that like for you? Is this the first time you've done it?
I mean, it's the first time I've done it seriously. There have been like
Yeah.
a couple of things, like I'll step out and somebody come play drums, or I'll,
Yeah.
sit in with someone. But since I started trying to be more serious about it and be the best I can possibly be at it, it's fun. What's funny, it's a little bit cultural, I think, but maybe it's the age difference because I'm older than all the kids playing in the band.
Right. Right.
They're so agreeable. Like it's tough to get them to, to give me any opinions on stuff. Which I mean, it's not annoying yet, but it'd be nice. And to some degree, it's great because I'm trying to manage things, so it's fine. Yes, I'm glad you like this song, and we're gonna do it. But sometimes I'm really unsure, and I want their opinions. But
I know
funny.
that's early on with my wife. I'd play one of my songs for her. What do you think? Oh yeah, it's great. I love it. Oh, okay, good, great. And then another song and another song and another song, and she'd say the same thing. It's great. I love it. What exactly do you love about it? Oh, I don't know. It's good. Nah, no, sorry, that's not good enough. You have to get more specific.
Yeah.
Is there anything you don't like about it? Oh, well, and then she starts, getting into it, like, well, you've been holding back on me. These are all really insightful comments. Great. Now I need to remix.
Well, that's a good way to ask.
Yeah.
I might try that on my bandmates.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What don't you like? Like, I know all the good stuff. Duh, it's obvious. But what, if you could change anything, what would it be?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
No, but it's been fun. It's been fun.
That's great. Yeah. I love it too. But what do you do with your hands? Do you dance? Do you?
Oh, dude, I'm I'm into the whole performing thing. So that's part of the learning curve for me too. Part of it's just, getting the courage up to do some of the things I think about. I'm mostly a mic on the stand guy. But I have, it sounds so silly, but it's kind of a big thing for me. But I have taken it off the stand a few times.
Woo!
I picked the
You
stand up.
maniac.
I picked the stand up a little bit. And
Yeah, yeah.
But it's funny. My sort of inspirations. I mean, I have this sort of embedded thing with Mick Jagger because I've followed him since I was a wee lad. But
Of
also,
course.
like, I've seen Paul Rogers perform many times, and I always thought he
Mm.
was really cool. And I was thinking the other day, I got to go watch that. I think it's their last live performance with Keith Moon, and they look like they're in some small venue, and they sound fucking amazing. But I was like, I got to go watch Roger Daltrey on that and see what he's doing. I remember a
Oh
couple things, but
man,
I would like to
yeah,
watch him. He was pretty cool.
yeah. He was way cool, and what he had going for him was that you know he had those sort of smoky good looks, and so he didn't have to move around a lot.
Right.
But I think after a while, this is pure speculation. I didn't read this, but I think that after a while, he kind of you have the maniac known as Keith Moon, and then you have Pete Townsend with all the windmills and jumps and everything. And so Daltrey and Intos will just kind of like, yeah, okay, look, you guys go ahead, light your hair on fire. We'll be standing over here.
That's a good
But
point, actually.
I think after a while, yeah, yeah. Like how do you compete with that? But I think after a while, Daltrey just got bored and he started doing the mic swing, where he was swinging the mic out, 10 feet and lassoing it, over the audience's head and stuff. And he got really, really good at it. And and that was, you just couldn't wait. And so if you look at pictures from them back in the day, or freeze frame a video, you'll notice that. And wireless technology was already a thing. He didn't use wireless because he loved swinging the mic. And so they would duct tape the mic cable to the mic so that it didn't come unplugged as he's swinging it over the audience.
Yeah, I've been thinking maybe about him a lot lately because just from mucking around with the mic a little bit, I have
Yeah,
unplugged it on stage.
right,
And not
right,
even, it's not like I stuck my thumb in the clip in the the little bit
right,
or anything. It just comes off. And so it's like,
right.
I need to get some gaff tape and just put it on there. I'm not going to swing it. I'm not going to Roger Daltrey it, but I don't want it coming off.
But if you do feel like doing it, you're safe.
Exactly. And if as long as I don't hit one of my bandmates,
Big out. Yeah,
goes
exactly.
over.
Pay
Goes over.
attention.
So last time we talked, if I remember correctly, and I didn't make time to go out and look, but your elected Charlie Brown was about to start as a project. Did that come out?
Yes, yes, it did. You're not elected. Charlie Brown
Thank
came
you.
out, and and then that one came out, and then after that, the Valentine album came out, and they're all just wonderful, and they've also had subsequent releases with the LA producer whose name always escapes me, and I've got one of his albums sitting right in front of me that he mixed. It's the Easter Beagle album, and I can't find his name. They didn't give him credit on. Oh, wait,
Damn.
wait, wait. I know, I know. Oh, I just found something inside. Okay, this will say it. Um, and so they've had two more releases with that guy mixing. And his name is Clark Germain. How could you not remember a name like that, Clark Germain? But he's really, really good, and he's kind of he's on sort of the who's who list in LA. Gets a lot of big gigs, and he was the guy who transferred. He did all the transferring
Oh, wow.
of all of the multi-tracks off of analog into Pro Tools, and he's the guy that baked the tapes uh, perfectly, because in the gosh, it's almost 200 cues now that I've mixed. Um, we haven't found a bad track in them. No, like, weird tape hiss or any kind of, like, the sound of wrinkled analog tape being played back. Nothing. Absolutely perfect transfers, and the tracks just scream. They sound so good. And so the last album I did is due out, I think, at the end of this year, and it's called "It's a Mystery," Charlie Brown, and yeah, and so, and they are just killing in Billboard. I watched this and I'm like, is this something that I had something to do with? I mean, because dude, I've never been in Billboard magazine, let alone place in the charts, let alone stay in the top 10 for like 2 years.
It's
Or
about to be on your resume.
like, I know, right? I got to beef up my resume. Yeah, yeah, it's incredible, and it's all the Mendelssohns. So Lee Mendelssohn, the and he's the man that brought Vince Guaraldi and Charles Schultz together and produced all the cartoons. It's his kids that have taken over the business in his absence, and I guess it never occurred to Lee, and it never occurred to anybody else in the Mendelssohn film enterprises to release these other soundtracks. So there was only ever the two. The Not You're a Good Man, that was from the musical, but there was the Christmas album, and then just music from Charlie Brown. I forget what they called it. But there was only two soundtracks ever properly released in stereo and distributed, right? But there were 15 specials, and Vince Guaraldi wrote original music for all of them. It's insane why they never release these, because right now they're essentially being released for the first time. They're killing. They're just, when you look, in the Billboard top 10, it's like, okay, here's the latest, Lady Gaga album, and right below that is Charlie Brown.
That's funny. When did you say this last one comes out?
I think towards the end of this year, and it's called It's a Mystery, and they did a really cool thing. Oh, and the packaging on these albums, they're doing picture discs, they're doing colored vinyl. The album covers are all gatefolds, and then with like these inserts. It's all super colorful and very ornate, and they press all the records on what's called bio vinyl. So they're not petroleum based, so friendlier to the environment. And so not only are they releasing these albums, but they're releasing them with real splash. Like I said, like the Easter one is oval shaped like an Easter egg, and they released it in 5 different pastel colors.
That's nuts. There's
a zoetrope one where if you have a strobe light on your phone, you can time it to the revolutions on the record player, and shit starts dancing up off of the record. It's like,
that's crazy.
So they're having a blast with it, and so not only is the music really cool, it's really cool, but they're making it all super enticing to jazz collectors, to fans of whatever kids music, and then the idiots who will buy anything if it's on colored vinyl or picture disc, like me. And so they're just crushing it right now. So they're taking the whole thing very seriously.
Yeah, these special edition things are kind of a last bastion of revenue outside of touring for anyone, so that's good for them.
Yeah, and they also seem to take full advantage of, well, obvious holidays. They released the Thanksgiving one in late October, to coincide with Thanksgiving and so forth. But also, they're very, very in tune with the Record Store Day enterprise. Are you familiar with that? Record Store Day?
Yeah.
So yeah, and so then the Record Store Day will buy, X amount of copies, and I don't really know. I'm just kind of pulling this out of my head, but like 1,500 copies to only be sold on Record Store Day. So the people go and stand in line to buy records that are only available on Record Store Day, and so they're taking full advantage of all the avenues that they have available to them, and
that's cool.
And yeah, and you're right. It's so hard for the artists to make money anymore. But did you know? You probably know that. And I don't have the statistic right in front of me, but it's something like vinyl record sales in 2025 topped the $1 billion mark.
Oh,
and that's the first time since like 1985. yeah, so vinyl is really helping the record industry right now, interestingly.
Well,
And
I
I
notice
don't know, it's just
all the big acts are putting out vinyl.
everybody. Yeah, everybody does. From the big acts all the way down to go and see an independent group playing their 9 original songs, at some, small venue in their hometown. And you go to their merch table. They're selling cassettes. They're selling 45s, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
as a matter of fact, yeah, Johnny Bergen, this guy from, well, I forget where he's actually from, but he's a Chicago blues player, and he's been here a couple times, and I've played some shows with him, and he always comes with a little bit of vinyl in his hand, for
Yeah,
his latest thing.
yeah, 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 you gotta love it. And so yeah, I have a record player.
So, I did not remember this from our first conversation, but it really caught my eye in your email. But you described your studio as DAW-less, no computers, no automation, mixing by hand.
Yeah, fingers
Uh,
on faders. Yeah.
so what does that kind of, I'll put it in air quotes because it may be the farthest thing from it for you, but like that kind of constraint, what does it free up for you?
Yeah, well, it uh, like any recording format, there's a plus side and a negative side. First of all, the word DAW-less, DAW, stands for, it's an acronym for Digital Audio Workstation. And there's no computer running in the background. So my studio is completely analog in its approach, tube mic preamps. I have an old British mixing board. I mic up drums. I mic up guitar amps. I have tube vocal mics. It's just all very, very analog, except, oh, and I have a patch bay. All of my effects are outboard. But at the very end of the signal chain, I have a hard drive recorder, and it only records mono tracks as WAV files. So it's a WAV file recorder, and it's 24 track. I have 2 of them, so I can record up to 48 tracks. But the playback, it plays into my analog board, and if I want to change something, I have to do it with my hand. So I have auxiliaries and EQ and buses, and you know. So the plus side is, well, first of all, it's what I'm used to. That's how I learned, just on old mixers and mixing by hand. So I think of that as a plus. I know where everything is. I can, I like the visceral aspect of, if I want to change something on channel 17, I reach over to channel 17. I don't have to go to a drag down menu and insert the EQ program into my snare drum or whatever. Just EQ on the mixer.
Hmm.
So that's the plus side. So it's really fast, compared to recording on a DAW where there's a lot of work that you have to do, song after song after song, to get the mix up to where you want. The downside to DAW-less mixing is there's 2 things that I wish it had. Command Z for one makes a mistake, like oops, I just deleted a track, or or recall. Like you do a mix, and then a week later the client calls back, yeah, you know what, vocal's too loud, can you turn it down? No, I can't, because that mix it's been torn down. The only way to turn your vocal up or down is to remix, which takes 2 or 3 hours. And
Wow. Hmm.
so that's the downside. But this style of recording, what it does do is it forces the artist to more or less come in prepared, know their song, we spend time working the arrangement and make everything is cool. But not like, okay, well, we'll just fix it all in post. We'll automate that jumpy vocal. We'll automate that jumpy snare drum or whatever, um, no, you know what? That last phrase that you just did, yeah, you were a little off mic. We're gonna have to redo it again.
You can't
Oh,
even cut tape, can you?
can't cut tape, but I can punch.
Yeah.
I can punch, and so yeah, just maybe step an inch closer to the mic, and we'll do that line again. And it works. And then when you're mixing, the vocal just sits there right where you want for the whole song. You don't have to automate levels, and it's just right. very, very old school. So, it's, it's kind of, the engineer's term, measure twice, cut once, So make sure it's good going in, and then you don't have to fix anything in post,
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I imagine that requires a unique engineer's ear to do well, right? Because there's not all that automation and patching and stuff to do afterwards. It really
well, yeah. By today's standards, that's unique, but it's not unique by my standards. That's just recording. That's
hmm
just listening closely and knowing, well, if I let that vocal stand that way, or if I let those snare drum dynamics stand that way, or that bass pop up, I let it stand that way, it's gonna fuck me in the mix. I'll be screwed in the mix. So no. I see this one coming. Let's just go back and redo that 8-bar segment, or that 8-beat segment, or that 1-beat segment, whatever it is, and so that in playback it doesn't require any kind of triage.
Yeah, I suppose my limited recording experience, doing some drums and vocals at home and collaborating with people in remote places, I sort of had this old school mentality, I suppose, of like, I got to make sure this goes in right. It sounds
Right.
as good as it possibly can.
Yeah.
But there was, on one of the tracks I've done, there was a time constraint, and I couldn't get it get it done as well as I wanted to. But
Right.
I knew that my mixing engineer could fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know, honestly, I don't know what he might have done with my vocals. I think he's the kind of guy that would just like make it sound great and not tell you if he did anything at all. But I mean, other than mixing it, but if he had to like fix stuff. But I mean, I was seriously thinking, I got to make this like, he's just going to make it sound better. He's not going to fix anything. That was just the way I went into it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to appear disingenuous. It's not like I don't process signals, but I do it all, circa 1995. I use EQ and reverb and compression, and varying amounts of compression. Say like a lead vocal. Lead vocals often need compression because somebody hits a loud note and it maybe gets too loud above the mix, um, and so I'll compress a vocal track so that nothing jumps out of the top of the mix, So that's automation in a sense, I'm not just recording raw signals, So there's stuff that you do in post, but it's all what analog engineers would do: EQ, reverb, compression.
Right.
And but past that, it's got to be in tune, in time, and yeah.
I think the one guy I've worked with who has a legitimate home studio has kind of a hybrid. He's got a DAW, but he has a lot of analog high-end stuff, that he works with in conjunction to that.
Right. Well, that used to be, that was the pro setup. Like maybe you would track to tape to get the analog sound, and then throw everything into Pro Tools so you could automate your mix. But now the hybrid is, rather than rely on all the programs working in Pro Tools or Logic or Cakewalk or whatever you're using to record on, you just do it outside the box.
Yeah.
Like, I have a $4,000 Universal Audio compressor, right? And even the guys at Universal Audio will tell you, oh yeah, the software doesn't sound nearly as good as the actual hardware unit.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not that good. And what's happened now in digital recording is, again, with the electronics, they're always making the programs better. The computers have way more memory capacity and way more running ability. And so now the modern studio, you can go out of your DAW into your rack of processing gear, and then back into your DAW. all real time. You don't have to render anything. You just go out of track 18, maybe that's where your snare drum is, into your favorite compressor for snare drum, out of that compressor, and you patch it in back into your DAW. And because it used to be like 10 years ago, that was a real time consuming process. I remember mixing a song 2 albums ago of mine, and there was a lot of tracks, and as careful as I tried to be, I still needed to, remember to boost this guitar here, but then turn this one down here, and then pan this vocal. There was a bunch of stuff that I just couldn't foresee in tracking. And so there was a bunch of stuff I needed to do in the mix. I'm like, fuck, I need to automate this thing, So I went to a Pro Tools studio in town. Great Pro Tools studio, Gold Records, all, really, really good studio, great guys, super talented engineers. And we spent 18 hours mixing my song. Mixing, no tracking. Just, here's my 28 tracks or whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. But to get the tones that they wanted, they had to go out of Pro Tools into all of their rack stuff. And this is a real-time process. So, out of Pro Tools into the compressor, get the compressor sounding the way you want, and then record that onto an adjacent track in Pro Tools. And now you got 2 snare drum tracks, one with, one without the effect. And if it's a 5-minute song, that's like a 10 or even 15-minute thing. You have to audition the sound, get it right, and then record it back into Pro Tools. And then you have 28, 30 tracks, which is a minimum by today's standards. And that you have to do that to every one of them, And so we weren't screwing around. Hey, you want to have sushi? Let's get stoned. I mean, it was nothing like that. It was nose to the grindstone the whole time. But 18 hours,
damn,
just to mix one song in Pro Tools, and that's not the case anymore. Now, if you want to use external devices in your Pro Tools or Logic or whatever you're recording in, and if you have a good enough computer and the right program, you can do all that. So that's probably where I'll be, within the next couple of years. It's definitely what I'm planning on. I have to get a better computer, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Well, that kind of answers I was contemplating whether to ask you this, like, whether it was, you sort of answered part of this, it's like whether it was a creative or philosophical choice or both. But then I was looking at this question, like what would be lost if you brought more, computer into the room, so to speak. But
nothing.
Yeah.
I on that same album that I was telling you about, that one song I mixed in Pro Tools, I was actually taking a Pro Tools class. This is about 10 years ago, and I was taking a Pro Tools class at a local college here. It is great. I loved it, and a lot of it was like, yeah, okay, duh. A lot of it was like stuff I knew, but then every now and then, okay, there's something that's very specific to recording on a DAW, as opposed to where to put the microphone on a snare drum kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so my projects were all, okay, well, you have to, record a song and submit it at the end of the semester. I'm like, okay. And what I learned was, first of all, Pro Tools does not sound good, nor does it sound bad. It doesn't sound. It's just a recorder. It sounds as good as you can make it, And so with the EQ and effects that come native to the program, it's really hard to sound good. It's like stock tires when you buy a car. They're not the greatest tires, And so I realized that if I had bought Pro Tools then, well, which I did, to do my homework on, but if I had bought into a full system, I would had to have bought all of the add-ons to get the Joe Meek EQ add-on and the Universal Audio Compressor add-on and the Lexicon Reverb add-on. And they're all hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And I realized that I turned in my projects and they sounded good, but dude, they did not sound great. And they didn't sound nearly as good as I could have made them sound just if I had used my old setup, And that's when I realized, this is not the panacea that it's been propped up as, or at least in my mind that I thought it was. And if I had clients complaining, yeah, man, we just can't record with you anymore because you don't have Pro Tools, then I would have gotten Pro Tools long ago, or something, Reaper or whoever, right? But I can't keep up with the clients I have right now. They love recording here, And It's all I don't know how I would incorporate a new recording format without canceling 50 sessions, you know.
Wow.
Um, and so yeah, that's what I learned. Pro Tools doesn't sound good, nor does it sound bad. It sounds as good as you can make it. But if you want to really compete on a high end level, you have to get a lot of the the add-on aftermarket packages, and then hope that your operating system will be able to operate them, 5 years from now.
Yeah, and well, yeah. And does that still match up to, this sort of the version like what you have or could have, you have all this physical hardware that
Right.
does a lot of the
Right.
stuff that the add-ons would do. So there's that as well.
Well, yeah, no, and that's just it. I get asked to mix in other people's studios a lot, and so I'm reminded of exactly what's available and what's not available, and the different rev programs that are out there, and so in my studio, since I know it so well, I built it. I can record really fast. I've got all my tones sort of dialed, and 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 so it's not a big intellectual process. So when I'm doing a session, I can be more of a producer and less of an engineer. I can more listen to the music and not just, is it in tune or is it in time? But yeah, this bridge here, I just think it may be a little long. Well, what would you do? Well, cut it here and then take these 4 bars and put them here, and help be an arranger or a producer or a session guy. I have this idea for a guitar part, or, whatever it is. And so the engineering part of it is just so simple now because I'm just so used to it. Whereas if I change formats, there'd be something of a learning curve.
Sure.
And I just haven't had enough situations where, damn it, can't do this session. I don't have Pro Tools. That said, there are a couple of musical styles that I just don't record because they are so reliant on modern recording, and that is any kind of hip hop thing,
Mhm.
or like modern metal, like Slipknot or whatever. There's so much triggering, and there's so much that relies on MIDI and time clock and snapping to grid and all of that stuff. That, man, yeah, I just don't have it. So, but interestingly, I don't have a lot of metal or hip hop acts wanting to record with me. So, kind of works out.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So Ric Shah and the Sandcrabs from Jupiter.
Ah, yeah.
Do I have it right that was kind of like has been like a 7-year project production wise?
Well, on that album is a song called Third Roar of the Lion. And Third Roar of the Lion, which is the second track on the album, or third, has to do with what happens when one watches The Wizard of Oz, the movie, while listening to Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Have you ever heard of this phenomenon?
Yes, and I'm having trouble recalling it, but is it that the movie or the album was written one to the other, but it wasn't like a publicly known thing?
No. No, there was no planning involved. There were no common people involved. There was a good 40 years in between the production of the movie and the recording of the album.
Right.
It's just something that somebody discovered, and that if you watch The Wizard of Oz while listening to Dark Side of the Moon, all of these amazing, weird, freaky synchronicities happen.
Yeah,
and
which is what I was trying to say, by the way.
yeah. And it's like, no way, but it wasn't planned. Roger Waters, David Gilmour, they all go, no way, no way. No way did we have that in mind. And besides, even if we did, the album is like 43 minutes long, which, by the way, is how long it took the Artemis space shuttle to go around the dark side of the moon. Exactly 43 minutes, the same running length as the album
right?
Dark Side of the Moon. Yes.
No, come on, really?
It is. No, I know. Oh, fuck, it just never stops. But the running time on the album is 43 minutes, but the movie is 2.5 times that long. So you have to set up your CD player on repeat all so that the album starts over, after 43 minutes. So how would they have known that, and then you start the record over, and then this stuff will happen, it's like, but it works. So in order to get the thing going so that everything syncs up, you start the movie first, and the MGM lion comes up and he roars 3 times. And he roars once, he roars twice, and then there's a pause, and then he roars a 3rd time. And on the 3rd roar of the lion is when you unpause the CD of Dark Side of the Moon. And I've been telling people about this for decades. I didn't invent it or discover it. I just heard about it decades ago. And I've been telling people about it. We've had parties at the house. Let's do it. It's cool. Yeah, let's drop acid. And I always thought that would be a cool song title. And so I wrote the song ostensibly about that. But then I realized that rather than it just being an instruction manual for how to sync up Dark Side of the Moon to Wizard of Oz, but I talked about other synchronicities, things that are hiding in plain sight,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the rest of the lyrics. But now, to answer your question, which almost took 7 years, I had Andy Latimer from the British progressive rock band Camel. He played on it. And at first, all he did was play on it. But then he started adding more and more stuff. And he not just his wonderful guitar playing, but all of this really trippy synthesizer work. And then he made it really psychedelic with all of these like sound effects and backwards things and wind and just like, just mind-blowing stuff. Real headphone candy stuff, and I loved it. I was in tears. It was so great, and so I asked him to send me the WAV files, and he lost them. He lost. He says, I don't know. I can't find them. I don't know what happened. I think I might have deleted them. I can't find them. Oh, well, okay. That's cool. Only the coolest thing I've ever done ever, and you lost it. Oh, that's all right. So like, do you want me to come to England and help you find them? He's like, oh, it's okay, mate. I'll keep looking. I'll find them. Right. And no, he never did. And so finally, I re-recorded it with somebody you may know, Robert Ferris, and he and I did a version of the song. And we listened to what Andy and I had done, our version of it, and I was like, okay, all right. And so then we did a version similar, but we weren't trying to sync up to the old version. Why would you? So we came up with our version, which was at a different tempo, slightly different tempo, like 6 or 7 beats a minute different, and a way different arrangement, had a longer intro and had a guitar solo, which the version with Andy and I didn't. And we did it, and it was great, but as try as we did, we never really captured the magic of Andy's incredible slide playing. He's very David Gilmour-ish, and his incredible synthesizer work, and it never really captured that. And I was like, yeah, no, this is good. I was trying to convince myself, yeah, this is good. It's good. And it's with my dear friend, Robert Ferris. And so I'm happy, right. And then I saw the Rick Beato video on how the Beatles recorded Now and Then, the last song they released 2 years ago. And he explained that when I can't remember the director's name, who released the Get Back movie, like the 6-hour-long documentary on the making of Get Back.
Yeah, I forget his name.
What's that guy's name? I can't remember. All the people in the Beatles organization was like, okay, how did you make the music sound this good? It didn't sound that good then. What are you doing here? And that director told him, well, we're using this AI program called lal.ai, LALAL.ai. Right, so that's not really the Beatles. Oh, no, it's the Beatles. All lal.ai does is it's a track separation program. And back then they were recording on 8 tracks, 16. The bass and drums would be on one track or whatever. So you can't turn up the bass drum if it's also on the same track as the bass guitar, that sort of thing. And so you get it as good as you can given those limitations. Not unlike what I had to do with some of the early Vince Guaraldi albums that I mixed. But you get to a point where you just can't separate it any better. So Yoko Ono gave Paul McCartney a cassette of John's of 3 songs that he'd been working on before he died. No, after he died. One was Real Love, the other was Free as a Bird, which was kind of a big hit for them. And then the other was the song Now and Then. But Now and Then, they couldn't make it work. They couldn't extract Lennon's vocal far enough away from his piano to be able to put it in the mix without having his out-of-tune piano also in the mix. and so they tried, Paul and Ringo played on it, as did George Harrison back in 1995, but they eventually bailed. Hey, you know what? We got 2 out of 3. We're good. And then this LawLaw.ai program becomes known, and that's how they extracted Lennon's vocal from his out-of-tune piano. And so when you hear Now and Then, that is Lennon. That's not a robot. That's not a rendering of Lennon. That's Lennon. But they were able to remove his vocal from the piano and remove the piano from his vocal. And so I watched this video, and then it occurred to me with the tracks that Andy Latimer had sent me, just an MP3 of his rough mix of it. Mm-hmm. So I throw the MP3 into LawLaw.ai, and dude, like fucking magic, I get 8 tracks all spit out in front of me. Here's the drum track, here's the bass track, here's the guitar, here's the vocal. What do you want? I'm like, wow, well, I want the guitar, I want the sound effects, and I want the keyboards. Okay. So now I've got WAV files of the tracks that Andy lost.
That's crazy.
And I know. But it was a different arrangement and a different tempo. So I take all of my tracks that I did here in my studio with Robert Ferris, take them over to another studio, Pro Tools studio, and give them my tracks, give them Andy's tracks, and can you make them sync up? And so you probably know this. There's an aspect of Pro Tools. It's called time compression, where you can bracket like a drum fill that rushes. For instance, I don't know if you've ever rushed a drum fill. I never have, but I hear guys do. I hear that there are guys that rush their drum fill.
I still do it.
Okay, I did it once. A session. So anyway, so you take the rush drum fill and you can actually stretch it. We want this drum fill to last from bar 39 all the way to bar 40. Thank you. Not the last 16th note of bar 39. And so you can expand it, and it works. And so then you hear the drum fill played back, and it's perfectly in time. Also, that's what we did with Andy Latimer's tracks. We slowed them all down to fit the new tempo.
That is crazy.
I know, but
do you have your original, I guess, stems that LaLa made still? I lost them. No.
Right, they're here somewhere. Well, I do,
because now I have to hear the evolution CD of the CD that shows how it magically came together.
This is definitely one of those Strawberry Fields Forever kind of things where they had 7 different versions of it in 2 different keys, and through slowing this tape up and slowing that tape down and cutting tape and whatever, they made the one version that we all know of. But that's how they did it back in the old days with razor blades and adhesive tape. Mm-hmm. And pitch control. So here's the thing with LaLa. Even if I went out and bought a brand new computer, it would not be capable of running that program. It's, I'd have to have a generator in my backyard, and so what I have is a subscription to LaLa. I load my files up to their mainframe, and then
they're running it on Amazon.
They do the
services.
work and then give me the WAV files. Yeah, exactly. And so I happen to know, because I was just there, that those files still exist at lol.ai.
That's cool.
But do I have them?
I want to hear them.
I must, but what I can do is send you mine and Andy's version if you're really, really curious, and then send you mine and Robert's version.
Yeah.
And then listen to the album, and then you'll hear, because the thing is I didn't just abandon Robert's tracks. They were killer. I love them both. So on the new version, or the one that's on the album, there's Robert and I, and my friend Matt Blackett played the guitar solo, but then all of Andy's tracks too.
That's crazy.
So it's like, yeah, man, exciting. And and then after all that, Andy calls me. He goes, "Hey, I found the files."
No, did he really?
Yeah, but that was like 3 years. It was a year after I finished the mix, and it was 3 years after we had stopped working on it, and waiting. "Hey, mate, how you been? Just wondering, did you happen to look for those files today?" "No, mate, I was preparing the band for our gig at the Royal Albert Hall." That's how those guys roll. Right. So yeah, that was 7 years in the making. But the rest of the album was songs that I have been doing for like the last 7 years. I don't sit down and try to write an album. I'll write a song and record it, and then look at my hard drive and go, "Yeah, look at all these songs and no one's ever heard." I know at least 12 people that would want to hear these and do an album. But the title cut, Ric Shah and the Sandcrabs, is an homage to a friend of mine named Mike Perlitch. And we were in a glam band in the 70s. We were all about, David Bowie and, just the whole glam thing, Queen and so forth. And he goes, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about changing the name of the band to Ric Shah and the Sandcrabs from Jupiter," clearly riffing on Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And we all got a good chuckle out of it and whatever. And that was it. But I'd always thought that would make a great band name. Like say you're doing a 70s glam tribute band, and you could call it that. Or in this case, I wrote a song as a tribute to Mike, who had since passed away. And I tried to write it, that is to say, in the style that he wrote. And he was a classically trained pianist. And so all of his stuff was very much like the British prog bands of the mid to late 70s. There was definitely a classical influence. They all had keyboards like Procol Harum and Genesis. And there was definitely a classical music background, even though they were, rock bands. And so I tried to write it in that vein. And then it's an homage to him. And he was always very mercurial, very, very trippy, hard to ever really pin the guy down. And so I made it a song about a band, the Sandcrabs from Jupiter, and they only played one gig and then they vanished. At the end of the song, their images started phasing in and out as if they were like Star Trek holograms, and then they just vanished. They're gone. and so, yeah, that's Ric Shah.
And how did you manage to write in his voice, so to speak, rather than your own?
Well, I definitely have my own aesthetic go-tos. I love Todd Rundgren and I love Steely Dan. And so somewhere between those two guys, their influence makes themselves known in my music. I don't try to emulate them. It just comes out. It just comes out, And so with trying to sound like Mike Perlitch, I knew what he did. I learned his songs on piano. He played totally distorted Hammond organ, and then he had a clavinet that he played through a Marshall stack. He was a frustrated guitar player, I guess, and that's how he played himself out, like Bach with distortion. It's just so great. I love him. He was hard to be in a band with, but his art, it was so pure. They're really, really great. I miss him. He was a character. But yeah, almost like, you were brought up on the wrong planet. I think just, it's one of those guys, it just never really seemed to fit. He didn't dress like anybody. He didn't talk like anybody. You know, his money seemed to come from nowhere. you know it's just, how do you do that? It's just almost like you want to look at his feet and see if they're actually touching the ground.
Wow, it sounds like
It's one of those people that walks into a room and the air pressure changes. Just
wow.
yeah. So I wrote the song not so much trying to sound like Mike, but hopefully, man, I would like to think that if Mike heard this song, he would appreciate it. Oh yeah, it's not just a standard rock tune, although it's got all the ingredients of a standard rock tune. Guitar, bass, drums, and keyboards. Woo!
Mm.
Yeah.
And
I was doing a sit-in gig with the cover band, and the guitar player's really great. His name's Rick Wilson, and not in that annoying way that some people do, but he would quote other famous songs and incorporate those bits into his solos, but not like inappropriate how some jazz guys all of a sudden start playing the Flintstones theme and thinking they're all fucking clever. Like, yeah, but dude, it's kind of wrecking the tune. So I get that you understand how that could fit harmonically, but you're not really doing anybody any favors, right? But in this case, he was quoting David Bowie riffs, but doing it in a very artful way. It's like, oh, I see what you did there, or Queen, So I asked him to play the guitar on it, and jokingly I said, "Yeah, man, could you bring your '59 Les Paul? That'd be great." I didn't know that he had a '59 Les Paul.
oh wow.
Yeah, I brought the Les Paul. Yeah, which one? Well, it's not a '59, it's a '60. Like, okay, wait, do you have a 1960 Les Paul? Yeah, here it is. It was like the Holy Grail or something. You open the case and just beams of light come out. So Rick Wilson played the guitar in that.
That's cool.
I played everything else. Yeah.
Did you find any challenges to making creative decisions for that song with any like emotional weight or anything, sort of memories of losing your friend?
No, man, you know what? It was nothing but good. It was all I had to do was channel my late teens and early 20s and just full of joy. And I don't know about you, but when I write, I don't sit down to purposely try to write a song that sounds like the Beatles or like Led Zeppelin. It's just I'm influenced, and sometimes those things pop up on my music, but I don't sit down with the intent to sound like them. In this case, I had a purposeful intent to sound like Mike Perlitch, and Mike Perlitch sounded like classical meets glam rock, 70s glam rock. So it was a great sort of task, and so everything I did just made me laugh and smile and just love that I can do it, as opposed to, oh, I miss my friend, and I do, but terribly, but it was almost like he was still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was nothing but joy, nothing but love, and the album cover is so great, and it's digital. It's a digital rendering by Michelle Graybill, who played drums for Montrose for like 7 years, right?
No
She's
kidding.
a killer drummer.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also an animator for Warner Brothers. And so she did the album cover, and it's Mike, he's tall and thin, and he's wearing an old style top hat, and he's got a cape, and he's playing this pipe organ, and the pipe organs, the pipes of the pipe organs turn into tentacles like an octopus, and they reach into the audience, and they're pointing and waving and clapping, and one of them's actually coming down and playing a note on the keyboard. And then the audience, it's kind of like My Sergeant Pepper, right? So in the audience are characters from Star Trek, and some of the Beatles are in there, and Pee Wee Herman's there sitting next to Carol Burnett, and it's just so brilliant. And so if you can find that image online, blow it up, and it's just really fun to figure out who all the people are.
I did that earlier today, but now I have to go back and look at it again.
yeah, it's so fun. The Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, and yeah, so
cool.
Yeah.
So you had all these collaborators who were not like necessarily people that anyone can cold call. So, how did those relationships work when it's time to make your own record? Do you ask differently than you would for a client project?
That's a great question. And with clients over the years, we've tried to get like certain famous people to play on a track. You know who would be great on this one, you know, and and um and so you reach out to that person, and some of them get back to you, and some of them don't. You know, they all have a Facebook page, they all have a website, you know, and I have found recently, you know, within maybe the last 10 years, that is to say, recently for me, my age,
Uh-huh.
um, a lot of them are way more into collaborating than they would normally have been for two good reasons. One, they can and do it from their home, you know, um, and 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 two, um, they're not all out touring and gigging as much as they used to. And when they do, the tours and gigs don't pay as much as they used to.
Right.
So if some schmuck like me can send them a WAV file and go, well, what do you need? Oh, $250. Okay, that's fair. So some of these people are a lot more approachable than you might think. But like in the case of Andy Latimer, as it turns out, you know, 26 years ago, I played drums and sang and played percussion on what was then their next studio album. But in 25 years, they haven't released another studio album.
Oh, wow.
I know. They still gig, they still tour. Last gig they played, Royal Albert Hall, and they sold it out, you know, so they still have a huge fan base. But Andy, as the main writer, just, I don't know. I think he got to a point where he pretty much done it all, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still an amazing player. And but I don't know.
He may just not, and you know, I'm thinking about something I'm going to share about myself, but he maybe just doesn't enjoy that part of doing what he does anymore. Like I was looking at some notes I had where you had implied in our last conversation that you'll play drums until you die, and
Oh yeah.
I thought, oh, I should probably share with him that not only am I fronting a band lately, but I have, for the second point in time over the past few years, decided I'm not really enjoying taking my gear out as a drummer and playing live anymore.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't hate playing drums,
Right.
but I just, yeah, I just don't get that much joy out of it. And I keep telling myself and others that, like, you know, some of it is my age, and it's a very physical activity. I don't have roadies, and just playing, you know,
Right.
is pretty physical. If you're playing rock,
Yeah.
or blues or whatever, which I do predominantly. So, but yeah, maybe he just doesn't enjoy recording anymore.
Well, because we've worked so closely together for so many years now, because he's played on my last three albums, I don't want to speak for him because I've got myself into trouble in the past speaking, well, what I think he wants, you know, but let's just say he just didn't. He just didn't produce any more material that was maybe worthy for the release on a Camel album. But he was still doing cameos on other people's records, and not just other people, but you know, like me, just like nobody's. But
It's
but you
easier.
know, huh?
It's easier.
It's yeah, and he's got a great recording hookup at home, and so you know the other members of Camel often ask him to play tracks on their own solo releases, and he does that, and then he's friends with a lot of other progressive rock guys in England, you know, and so it's not unusual that he would play with somebody from Hawkwind or whatever on their albums, you know, so so he likes recording, he likes creating, but maybe just had put out enough Camel albums, you know, and maybe felt like Camel is supposed to be progressive rock. There's supposed to be odd time and lengthy solos, and maybe he was just tired of that. I don't know, but he was like one of the greatest at it. But I have to tell you this story. It's just so amazing to me. Well, I'll just blurt it out. You can edit it out later if you want. But there's another song on the album called "Ask the Dearly Departed," and "Ask the Dearly Departed" is essentially a song about drug addiction, and um and and I wrote it as like a fast two beat, bop, 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 and you know, like a rock two beat, not unlike Jellyfish or yeah, you know, like that. And he played on it, and he was brilliant. He played guitar and keyboards, and just killer. It's great. Loved it. And those tracks are on the album. 3 days after he sends me the tracks for my song "Ask the Dearly Departed," he sent an 8-minute version of the same song, slower, much darker, and where he played all the tracks and sang. And it's riveting. It's so good. It's really creepy and psychedelic. And even though it's the same lyrics that I wrote about drug addiction, when I sing it, I sound like somebody preaching, you shouldn't do drugs because they're addicting. Whereas when Andy sings it, it sounds like it's being sung from the point of view of the addicted. And it's riveting, and for the record, he's not a drug addict. But he sang the songs as if he was on heroin, and it's so killer. And so when I was compiling my record and figuring out what songs I'm going to put on or whatever, like, man, I want to put Andy's version of my song on my album, right? So I asked him, could I do that? And he was like, well, why would you want to put that on your album? Like, because it's just so great. Who else is ever going to hear this, And I think it's fascinating, and a lot of albums, they'll have a reprise of a song that's a faster or slower version of a song that's also on the album, a recitati, I think was the Italian musical expression. And well, right, go ahead, that's fine. And he says, but I want to remix it. And I'm like, this mix is great. Yeah, exactly. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get the new mix in like 2 years. And he remixed it, and it came back even cooler. Like, oh, he had redone the guitar, and the lead solos were a little bit more prominent. Killer, great stuff, right? Like, oh, Andy, it's just so great, man. I'm just stunned. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Then he forwarded a letter to me from Colin Bass, who is the bass player in Camel. And they've been friends for, 35 years. They played in this band together. And Colin wasn't the first bass player, but he's been in the band the longest, other than Andy, in Camel. And he sent it to Colin. And Colin responded in a very British sound. It was just very erudite. Dearest Big Brother, I have listened to this track not once, but twice, but thrice. Before I, get back to with my remarks, I am stunned by this, and he goes on to talk about how beautifully it's produced and how his vocal really gets the emotion of the lyric, and that it's just one of the greatest things he's ever done. And then he closes by saying, why don't you release it, man? Like, just dangle it out there as a single. It doesn't have to be Camel. It's like, it's okay. You know what I mean? And so Andy sends me this email, and I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, me and all Camel fans in the world would agree. Yeah, you should put it. I'm not just saying that because it's one of my songs, but you're brilliant on it. And why would you not want people to hear you doing this? And so he emails me back. He goes, yeah, I'm going to release it. And again, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, sure. Says the guy who hasn't released anything in 25 years. Well, Robonzo, he put it on, he opened up a Bandcamp site, which is very not what he does. He's not a social, guy. He doesn't have Facebook and Instagram and all that. He opens up a Bandcamp site and puts it on there, right? With no fanfare. And it had thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads. And he calls me and he goes, well, mate, you just made $800. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And he told me, yeah, I released it on Bandcamp. And so now since then, he's released all these other tracks. And, it's got like a dozen, maybe 15 songs up on Bandcamp now. Just if you look under Andrew Latimer, they all come up. And some of it's progressive, but some of it's just blues, and some of it's folk, and some of it is just like a joke, joke song or whatever. But it's all him, and it's great. And so he's putting music out again.
That's crazy. So did it appear on your album as well? Like you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
well, that's cool. That's
yeah.
great.
Both versions are on there. Yeah.
It's funny how these, I don't recall a story like this, but I've seen tracks have a life like this where it gets released on something and then it's released by another artist, maybe some other permeation, and it's just fun. It's fun to hear that story. All right, last question for you.
Okay.
Uh, so what does it mean for a song when someone at that level, and there's a number of people I didn't mention, Michael Manring, tell me if I'm mispronouncing one, Michael Silversher,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
some others, and the ones that you were just sort of in passing mentioned in terms of how you try to just do that with clients. But what does it mean for a song when somebody at that level plays on it? Does the track change, or is it confirming something you already knew a song needed?
Well, look, I know this is going to sound, so I'll apologize up front. It's more of the latter. It more confirms how I knew the song should sound. You know, um, like I'm not just having famous people playing my record, you know, um, because it's cool. Although I got to tell you, it's cool, but it's because I can't play a guitar solo to the level that the song needs, and that's why I brought in Rick Wilson. And I can't do a bass track the way the song Phaedra needs, which is why I brought in Mike Manring. And and some of the people like Michael Silversher recorded for free, and he's a big Disney guy, um, and but we're friends. I played on the album that got him his first record deal back in the '80s, so we're lifelong friends. But with people like Mike Manring, uh, I just contacted him. Hey, turns out we have a friend in common. And anyway, I saw your recent gig. It was great. Hey, would you want to play bass on one of my tunes? He goes, yeah, send me the track. So I sent it to him. He goes, oh yeah, this is great. Send me the wave file. Like, okay. And I do, and he does like most pros do, two different takes. Here's one kind of close to the bass, and here's another one a little bit more artsy. And in his case, and it often is the case, I made a hybrid of the two and of the two tracks. And so the track that you hear him on, the song called Phaedra, it's not only a hybrid, but at the end, he didn't realize he was playing the same riff, but he was playing a harmony of it. He never imagined that two bass tracks would be on the same song, right? But from the second half of the song on, there's actually two bass tracks because they sound
Huh.
so great together. And he plays fretless. He's very much like Jaco Pastorius in that it's very mercurial. I mean, he can play with great distinction if it's like a funk tune. I've seen him do it. He's amazing. But this, floating harmonics and suspensions and stuff. And when I was listening to the two bass tracks, trying to decide which one is the one that's going to work, or which one's going to work here, and then which one's going to work here. I'm hearing both tracks playing at the same time. Like, fuck, they sound so good together.
That's great.
Yeah. So I figured out a way to, you know, so it it does elevate the quality of the song, but in only in the way that I had hoped, that I imagined. It didn't take it a different direction, with the exception of Robert Ferris, because he helped, record basic tracks for Third Royal Line. But with the exception of that one song, everybody else was an overdub. The song had already been written, the basic tracks had already been recorded, and so they're just playing, like James Riley played chromatic harmonica over the top of a couple of songs, and that's what the other people did too. Matt Blackett just played a solo over Third Royal Line, and sometimes it's like, yeah, it's great, or uh, it's kind of like producing by proxy. They send you an MP3. You go, look, it's really great, but could you do like maybe a longer cadenza at the end of the song? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay, sure. That
Yeah.
sort of thing. So then they send you another track back, and I'd much rather be in the same room at the same time when they're recording, but it's hardly practical these days. So I think there's something like 11 musicians all totaled on the album. Um, Only two of which, other than me, were in the studio with me. Yeah, it's so common these days, right? And it's magic too, because wave files are wave files. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't even have a DAW, but I have a wave file recorder. So I send them the wave files, and they load it into whatever their program is, and then they send me the wave file back, and everything, it all syncs up.
Yeah,
It's crazy awesome how that works.
I know. So fun. So fun.
Yeah.
I hope
Does that
actually
it?
it does answer the question. Yeah.
Okay, good, good, good.
I it's kind of what I thought you might say, but I wasn't sure, and I thought it would be just kind of a fun follow-up for people who haven't thought of trying to do this. I mean, you made it clear that it's always worth asking.
It really is, man. It really is. And on this album and also my last album, you just reach out to people that you think are cool, and they'll say yes or no, and if they say yes, you go, great. Can you record these tracks on your own? Yeah, just send me the files. How much money do you need? And then you decide if you can afford it. And no one's trying to get rich off of some indie songwriter. Well, I'm going to need 10 grand for that track. Yeah, right. So it's usually, a couple hundred, $250, $400. It's still worth it because it elevates the track immensely, because they're great. And then you can brag, yeah, I got Mike Manring on my song.
Right. That's amazing. Well, I know that I saw today, I did revisited the album. I think I had heard a little bit of it many weeks ago now, but thanks for resending it. And I listened to some of it earlier today, but I know that people can find it on the bonesandknives.com website at the store on that website, and they can also find out about your studio there.
Right. Yeah. So they can find out about me, the studio, and, like my last 3 records, they're all available at bonesandknives.com. As you said, Bones and Knives is the name of my studio. So bonesandknives.com. But then a more expedient way to go, if you're of a mind, is the album's available for download at all the platforms too, Spotify and Apple Tunes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Obviously, I make more money if you send me your $15 as opposed to Spotify. But
that's why we tell them these things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, cool. It was really nice talking with you. I'm glad you decided to do it again.
Oh yeah, likewise, man. And I was very much looking forward to it. And thanks for the killer questions and the opportunity. And always a pleasure. Yeah. So when are you gonna be back in the Bay Area again?
I don't know, but I was thinking earlier in our conversation, I probably thought it last time we spoke, that I have to come by and I'd love to see the studio. I'd love to hang out. I'd love to go get a lesson. So, there are all these options I have, but yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'll let you know when we're there at the very least. I'll often, try to pull together like some, a happy hour kind of thing where people can just come hang out, and I can, give hugs to a lot of people and see people.
Yeah, at the very least, and I know that you and I were introduced through our fellow friend George Brandow, and so that'd be killer to hang with him and you, and maybe get our hair done.
I don't think he's cut my hair since I've left the country. Maybe he has, but I'm always thinking I should really get him to cut my hair next time I go.
Totally. But yeah, the either of my studios are so fun. The recording studio, it's literally a museum. I have something on the level of 200 guitars, all out and displayed. So they're not like stacked in cases in a bank vault. They're all out. And so as a producer, it's like, this song needs 12 string, or this song needs sitar, or we need a different snare drum, of which I have 30 to choose from. You know what I mean? And we need a Martin acoustic guitar, or let's try a different mic on your vocal, or I have all of these tools, and they're all just begging to be used. And so it makes it really easy for me as a producer when I'm doing a record, because I'm not a fan of people that put out a record where every song sounds identical. And I'm not talking about harmonically or melodically, but the production. That's the same snare, the same bass sound, the same Fender Rhodes, and it's like the production is, and so I like to produce an artist and take a song and give it its own sort of sonic thumbprint, we use that same kind of instrumentation on the last tune. What if we do this? Let's use pump organ or fretless bass, or something. And I've got all of these weird freaky guitars, Teisco and Harmony, Kent, you name it, all these weirdos, and they all have a very unique sound that is decidedly not Fender or Gibson. And these are the very guitars that I write about for Guitar Player. And by the way, it's guitarplayer.com.
Okay.
And so they're all out there available for the clients. So when you come here, it's it's kind of breathtaking and fun.
I want to put a link to your your author thing on guitarplayer.com. Do you happen to know it? I'm sure I can find it, or maybe you could send it later.
Well, what I do is just I go to guitarplayer.com and then go to the search engine and punch in my name, Terry Carleton, or Whack Job, and that's the name of my column, Whack Job. It's not about my sex life, and so you can find my articles that way.
Cool.
Does that answer the question?
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, have a great afternoon. Talk to you soon.
Thanks again.
As an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. You could even say I depend on it. With that in mind, here are some things you can do to help support the podcast. Follow The Unstarving Musician on your favorite podcast app, leave a review on your favorite podcast app, or shoot a review to me by email, robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com, or just share this episode with a friend. This all has a big impact on our audience growth. Visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. Click Tip Done. Easy and super appreciated. You'll find many other ways to support the podcast there, including through our affiliate partners, our online merch store, and more. The music you're hearing is New Gods Part 2, the instrumental mix by yours truly. You can hear, download, and or buy the full version with vocals by yours truly at robonzo.com. If that was all too much to remember or process, just go to the show notes for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com to find links to all this and the stuff I talked about in today's episode. You can leave feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thanks for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.